You think the Red Sox have it bad right now. May I interest you in the Boston Bruins? Just when you thought they had turned the corner, the Bruins show who they really are once again. They're bullies. They're bullies. And we used to say that in a term of endearment. But no, we have gone from the Broad Street bullies and the Flyers to the Causeway bullies because they beat up on the weak and they crater when they face a good team every time. You know, there was talks. I talked about it on the show last week. Is it Sacco or is it the schedule that got them to win 7 out of 9? And I thought, probably a little bit of both. I liked the way they were playing under Sacco. Their defensive alignment, it finally felt like a team that was going to win on defense, which they weren't really trying to do with Montgomery. But it was undeniable that their schedule was filled with non-playoff teams, just filled with them. And it's great. You beat Detroit, you beat Chicago, you beat Philadelphia. Awesome. It's good. Wins count, right? Points count the same. But then you finally face a good team. And I remember thinking about this last night, just saying look, I don't even know if the Bruins are going to win this game, but I need them to show the positive habits they've been getting into under Sacco against a good team. Winnipeg's probably the best team in the league the first 2 months of this season. And the Bruins looked like they shouldn't have even been in the same league as the Winnipeg Jets. We're talking about the Boston Bruins here. They didn't deserve to be on the same ice as the Winnipeg Jets. It's the only time the Jets will beat Boston in anything, so congrats to them. But, just laughed off the ice. They don't play a good first 2 periods, but they're only down 3-1. And Lord have mercy on any of those who didn't watch the third period, saw the score at the end of the second, and then saw the final score, saying, down 3-1 going into the third period. They probably don't have much of a chance to win this game. Winnipeg is 14-0 this year when leading after 2 periods. But maybe they'll put up a fight here. They'll score. They'll pull the goalie early, blah, blah, blah. No, they lose 8-1. 5-0 in the third period. What a fucking joke. Joke of a team. They just completely lose their heads. They forget how to play hockey when they're playing a good team. When someone's actually going to push them back in the actual game, they can't do it. They cratered. They cratered the first period last night. Carlo takes a double minor. They're taking penalties like a minute into the game. They're giving up a late goal again in the last 2 minutes of a period. And 2-0 after 1 against a team like Winnipeg on the road. You're probably done right there. That's not St. Louis. This is a team that is arguably the best in the league with an actual great goaltender. You want to know what a great goaltender looks like that's worth over $8 million AAV? Look at the other end of the ice. That's who it is. Not some guy who's going to bitch all offseason about his value and then suck for the first 2 months of the season. There are plenty of problems with this Bruins team, but the goaltender is far, far from any kind of criticism here. He deserves all of it. He stunk last night again. And how many times he been on the ice this year for giving up 6 goals? They keep him in the whole game. They just let him take it. It's almost like this message from the coaching staff, whether it be Montgomery, who I saw not pull him in a game I was at in Dallas when he gave up 7, or Joe Sacco letting him get out there, get shelled for 8 against Winnipeg. It feels like this team is trying to settle scores when they're playing good teams and not actually trying to beat them. And, great, we'll have the great Trent Frederick highlight of him one-punching a guy who never fucking fights. Oh, sick. You beat up a Swedish guy who never fights. Awesome. You're a real tough guy. And then that gets left with Kastelik having to get in a real bout and Zadorov having to get in a real bout. And those are the guys who should be fighting. Don't get me wrong. But it's what score are we trying to settle? And I've seen this with some of these losses against good teams is, they get some nasty at the end. They get some big hits. They get some fights in there. And some of the leather-lunged fans are like, yeah, at least they're showing some toughness. It's no, I love a good fight and standing up for your guys. But what's happening with these Bruins teams is they're getting their ass kicked so catastrophically that they have no choice but to show some pride by fighting guys. And like once or twice a year, that's what you got to do as a team. It's just not your night. You get shelled and you got to show that you're not getting pushed around. With the Bruins, it's like once a week because they get shelled so goddamn often. Anytime they play a team that's in a playoff position, they get fucking shelled. It happened again last night. 8-1. Good God. You should make them sleep outside in Winnipeg in December if you lose 8-1. Like, show me some pride. Not by fucking one-punching a Swedish guy with like 2 career fights. Show me some pride by actually playing some goddamn hockey rather than whatever the fuck that was. Again. Oh, I wish they could all be Chicago's and Detroit's and St. Louis's and Philadelphia's, but they're not. And the sick part of all of this, the sick part of this whole thing is they are going to make the playoffs. So yes, Chad, thank you for the question. They will be making the playoffs because the teams below them, the Ottawas, the Detroits, the Montreals, they are worse somehow. They are young, they are inexperienced, they're undisciplined, and the Bruins have the undisciplined part, but sometimes they can actually play a good defensive game plan and beat some of these teams, like we saw the last 2 weeks. But they're gonna get their ass kicked in the playoffs. I mean, Washington last year was one of the worst playoff teams I've ever seen, and skill-wise, the Bruins are right there. I mean, this is what I've been talking about all season long. Even when the structure looked better under Sacco, and again, that if it continues to do that, they will get in the playoffs just being bullies. But the problem here still is they don't have any talent. Like any. Brad Marchand is your leading goal scorer. And I'm like Jekyll and Hyde with Pastrnak. Because part of me is like, Pastrnak has no help. He has no playmaking center. He has all the attention on him. And then the other part of me is like, if he's really that great, can he score some more fucking goals? Can he score more than one in like a 9 or 10 game span? Is that possible for him? Because boy, does he look out of it. I don't know what the injury is. Maybe it's worse than we think, than what we're hearing. But I mean, he just looks a shell of the player we've seen as the well over 100-point guy the last couple of years. I mean, just not even close. And everyone was lauding him for his play, that assist in the overtime winner against Detroit to Pavel Zacha. And it was a good assist, and it won them the game. But when he's getting the puck off a turnover right in the slot, in the low slot, and he is a guy who has had 60 goals in a year, why in the fuck is he not shooting? Why is he not scoring? I mean, again, it goes for naught because he assists on the game winner. But, like, we've got to be asking those kinds of questions. And speaking of the non-playmaking center, we can rail on Jeremy Swayman for not having a good year, Trent Frederick giving you nothing, Brandon Carlo giving you nothing, Charlie McAvoy completely losing his head anytime there's any kind of adversity. We can do all of that. But how about we take a look at the guys they signed in free agency? Because these guys are absolute frauds. Absolute fucking frauds, man. Nikita Zadorov, who I got to admit, I put the blinders on. I didn't really think he's what the Bruins needed. And I didn't like that he is on organization like number 6 or 7 by age 30. And that he doesn't give you any offensive output. I didn't like any of those things. But I got to tell you, my hockey Neanderthal took over. I was like, oh, big Zadorov. He's going to nail guys. He is going to give the Bruins an edge that they need. You know, in 07, they bring in Chara because they need that edge, that oomph right? But they needed to build a team around him. You don't need to build a team around Zadorov. He's going to give you all those positive things without being, a Norris Trophy winner. He's garbage. I mean, he is absolute garbage. He serves no purpose on this team whatsoever, which is probably more than I could say about Elias Lindholm, who is an absolute negative. You're telling me that is a center one in the NHL? That guy, that joke? And I was wary on this one. Is he the guy who scored 40 goals in one season with some unbelievable talent around him on his line in Calgary? Or is he the guy that couldn't really produce at a number one center level every other year? Every other year that he played. Is he the 42-goal guy? Or is he the guy that never even scored over 30 outside of that? Is he the 42-goal guy? Or is he the guy who has been a minus player for all but 4 years of his career? Which one? And he is a decent defensive forward, although I'm not saying he's a great defensive forward anymore. I can't say that. But you sign him to be center number one, to open things up for your offense, especially for David Pastrnak. 30 games, 3 goals, 10 assists, 13 points, and a -3. Are you kidding? He's one of the worst centers in the fucking league. Are you kidding me? That's your number one center? That's the guy you're paying $8 million to every year? He's horrible. He's fucking horrible. 13 points in 30 games and a -3 for a guy who's supposed to be like a Selke finalist? And the coach is the problem. Yeah, that's right, Jacobs family. The coach was the problem, not the guy who gave Elias Lindholm $8 million and signed Nikita Zadorov to a 5-year deal. Not that guy. It's the fucking coach's problem. Like, how can we not look in the mirror here? This is the roster that Don Sweeney has built. They're so bad when it comes to talent, man. Again, I think they'll make the playoffs. I do, but they'll get absolutely boat raced by someone in the first round. Probably Carolina, because that's the way it goes for us. Carolina will be the one. They'll beat them in 4 games. There won't even be a 1-goal game in there. This team, it just has no talent. And even coming into this season, you knew there wasn't a ton of talent, but you thought Elias Lindholm had talent. He doesn't. You thought Charlie Coyle had some talent left. Doesn't. You thought Trent Frederick showed you a little bit of talent last year. Nope. None. You thought David Pastrnak was a 50-goal scorer. Not even close. Thought Brad Marchand had something left in the tank. Not really, even though he was your leading goal scorer. Just no talent up and down this lineup. But I'll be damned if I go another day without putting Elias Lindholm through the woodshed, man. I mean, he's dreadful. Just a dreadful, dreadful, dreadful hockey player. And it's too bad. He seems like a nice guy. But that's where the compliments end. He's an awful, awful hockey player to be a number one center on your team. Ugh.
We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton. You can follow me on Twitter here for some more outrageous Boston sports takes coming to you every weekday at noon Eastern time. And then after that, wherever you get your podcasts.
We are Rogue Media Sports.